All right, well, it looks like folks are in. Let's go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Marcy Walton. I am a training consultant for ComPsych Corporation, which provides your employee assistance program benefits, excuse me, and I'm excited to chat with you today about maybe a unique or a topic that you don't see often in sort of a webinar format, and that is using laughter and humor and play to kind of talk through stress reduction as well as some problem resolution within teams. Um, Excuse me. So first, just a couple of technical aspects, a couple of things to go over. First is that the session is being recorded. So if you need to, pop up and, grab a snack or grab something to drink or something, please feel free to do so. HR will be coordinating with all of you to make sure that you have access to that recording. Um, excuse me, after we are done today. Additionally, you will not be asked to come off of mute or turn your camera on unless you want to. So please feel free to, sit back and relax. Definitely, we have that chat function over there. So please feel free to, pop a question, or I will definitely have a few interactive components. The more that people interact and engage, the better the experience is. Our next half hour to 45 minutes together. And then probably even more importantly, our research and our feedback from customers and clients have really noted that the more engaged they are sort of in the session, the more likely they are to use those skills or tips or tricks or, different ideas that they have kind of thought through during the session back at work. So all things to keep in mind as we move forward today. If there's any questions right now, please feel free to throw it in the chat. Otherwise, we'll get started. Just a few personal things about me. One, I'm fairly new to this position, about 3 months in, but previously I have worked at I've worked at colleges and universities for, oh my gosh, 15 years, I think. And man, college students make interesting and funny choices all the time. I know for me, I was from the residence life world. So everything from, being a resident assistant to a resident director, and then sort of working my way up and through. And sometimes the only way I would get through a day, or often a night or an early morning, was to laugh, to really find the humor in the situation of, oh my gosh, what decision did this 20-year-old make right now? I will also say that I used to live in California and drove through New Mexico on my way to get there. I'm currently in Ohio, and it was my favorite state. I always say that I would go and live in New Mexico in a heartbeat. So I was really excited to be assigned this session to get to talk to some of my higher ed people in a state that is really sort of near and dear to me. So with that, let's kind of talk through some of our objectives for today. One is, this might sound a little silly, but there's actually a lot of research behind the benefits of smiling, and what approaching some problems or situations can really do if you approach it with a smile on your face. Additionally, understanding how laughter can be used to reduce some stress. Just like I mentioned, sometimes very high stress situations, you can almost feel like a pressure release if laughter is involved. And then also understanding that both the value and the humor of play, which I think especially, man, this year has been so serious. And, I was in higher ed during all of the pandemic stuff and shifting and how do we support students. And, a lot of days were very, very serious. And, understandably, there's a pandemic. We're worried about our friends and our families and our students and our coworkers. But when we were able to engage and find the humor or be a little playful with one another, it really was beneficial for our team in general. So just a couple of things to kind of keep in mind. So getting into some of the benefits of smiling, it can really help you in a variety of ways. It can release serotonin, which can improve your mood. Smiling can also help you develop a little bit more positive focus on the task, whatever it is that may be happening. And then also, it can really help you build confidence. Even if it may be a little fake in the moment, our students used to say, fake it till you make it. And sometimes a smile can help with that process. Additionally, there is some pretty interesting research around the emotional effects of smiling. And first is understanding that there's different type of smiles, right? Like I mentioned, I'm in Ohio, I'm in the Midwest, and there's something called the Midwest smile where you're sort of like, mm, we're like, no, go ahead, pass me, go through traffic, or I don't necessarily know if I recognize you, but I don't want to be rude, so I'll sort of give this weird half smile. Not sure if that is the same in the South and the Southwest, but when we're talking about smiling, it's an authentic smile. It's a Duchenne smile, and a Duchenne smile is an expression that signals to the other person, or maybe the group of people, that you are actually enjoying whatever it is that is going on. And this occurs both when the muscles of the corners of your mouth are going up, as the same time as the muscles around your cheeks and your eyes crinkle at the corners. So those two things need to be happening, right? So I don't know if any of you are familiar with America's Next Top Model, but Tyra Banks always talks about smizing, which is smiling with your eyes. That's a little bit of a deep dive into my personal Netflix habits. But it's really the idea that you are being authentic, sort of in all of the muscles of your face, to articulate really true enjoyment to that other person. Additionally, smiling cools the brain. I feel like that's so cool. So if you are engaged in authentic and realistic smiling, it releases chemicals in your brain that cool it down, which actually makes it easier for you to handle a stressful moment, or to get through something that's really challenging to you. And additionally, people just feel more positive. So that can really be something to think about, especially if you are struggling with, a hard day, or you're sort of like not in the mood to smile. There's actually a lot of emotional effects that really go into that. Additionally, according to some additional pretty interesting research, this is out of Duke University in North Carolina, smiling not only affects you, but it can really impact other people within your social setting, whether that be your colleagues there at your university, whether it could be, a stranger in the grocery store, or, friends and family, because the human brain prefers and seeks out smiles. There's this. It's interesting, but also kind of heartbreaking video where researchers are seeing how babies will react to nonverbals. So there's a mom and a baby, and the mom is instructed to not say anything to the child. And then the baby will try to engage with the mom. And a big way that they do that is smiling. And when the mom does not react and smile back to that child, the baby gets upset. They will start to cry. All of their sort of internal system spike, their blood pressure will go up, because that baby is seeking out a smile as a nonverbal confirmation of whatever relationship they have with their mom. So our human brain is taught to really seek out smiles as a way to connect with other people. Smiling people are also more memorable, right? I'm sure you can think of somebody who, I have like 3 people in my mind right now who just have that memorable smile. They seem to be happy often, and not toxic positivity, not slapping on a smile when you're having a terrible day. But if you can be a little more intentional about it, there's actually some pretty great results that come from it. People also tend to smile back at us, and when they do so, they will see us in a positive way, which I think is really interesting. So, I'm smiling to a person, they're kind of picking up my vibes. They will have a better memory of me. They will think of me more positively just through that smile connection. So, some benefits of laughter. Laughter can also help in a variety of ways. It can literally improve your health, things like blood pressure and other health related items. It can definitely reduce your stress, and it can also improve group dynamics. So, looking at those three potential benefits, which do you think has impacted you the most? So just pick one and type it over there in the chat. When I think about the greatest benefits for me when it comes to laughter, which one of those would it be? Would it be the health benefits, stress reduction, or improving some group dynamics? Go ahead and type that over in the chat. I'm going to grab a quick sip of water here. All right, got to vote for reducing stress. Another stress reduction, excellent. All right, go ahead and throw them in there if you want to, no pressure. All right, we've got to vote for improving group dynamics. I know that can definitely break the ice sometimes or make something that was really maybe uncomfortable a little more comfortable. Excellent. Well, we are going to dive into these a little bit further. So the first one is going to be the health benefits of laughter. So again, some pretty cool research studies have been shown that laughter can stimulate the cardiovascular system. So it can really help with your heart health. It can actually strengthen your immune system, which again, man, our bodies are wild. The fact that laughter could make you have a better immune system is wild to me. But it can also increase endorphin release. So those good feeling chemicals that serotonin and cortisol and other things like that, it can release in your bloodstream, and it can basically communicate to your brain good things, and that can really keep you in a really good mood. Let's see here. Hold on just one second. Excellent. So, laughter can also reduce stress in a variety of ways. So, the Mayo Clinic did a research on this and can show that laughter can relax your muscles, it can improve your mood, and it can also reduce anxiety. Laughter yoga is one of these benefits. If you are not familiar with it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but I've actually done it in a group of college students, and it's the idea that everybody just sort of like lays down in their own little zone and tries to relax, and then one person, usually the instructor, will just start laughing. A joke wasn't told, a story wasn't told. It was just like, all right, we're going to start to laugh. And it's literally contagious. It's so hard to not when somebody else is laughing, unless you are, a total curmudgeon. And then eventually the entire room is laughing, and then you realize, oh my gosh, everybody is laughing. This is so stupid. This is so ridiculous. Look, I'm laughing. I'm thinking about it, and I'm laughing. So that is one way that you could engage in that. May not be realistic for necessarily a work setting, but definitely something to think about. Encourage you to go to YouTube or to Google that, because that will reduce your stress right in the moment. So the next piece is those group dynamics. So when you're in a group of people, and COVID has definitely made this harder, especially if you all are still working remotely. But definitely when we are in person, it can signal support or potentially a challenge, right? If somebody is trying to make light of something and you're like, yes, that was ridiculous, sharing a laugh or chuckling or giggling can say you are supportive of that. Or it could be a challenge. Sort of the skeptical laugh of like, are you serious? That can be sort of an easy way to provide a challenge for a person, maybe their idea or their approach to something. It can also facilitate the flow of the group. So this is the idea that, we're sort of in the zone, and this is a non-verbal way. You're not talking through things, but you're sort of contributing to us sort of moving forward through, maybe the project or the presentation or whatever, to help with those group dynamics. And it can also create beneficial ambiguity. So this is the idea that sometimes you need to kind of work through a problem. Not everything is completely laid out and perfect and ready to go. So if somebody is laughing within a group dynamic, maybe that's signaling to whoever is in charge that, oh, maybe they're laughing because they are trying to, cut the awkwardness of not actually knowing what is really going on. So that gets us to the value and the humor of play. This could be through improving your own sense of humor, through creating really simple jokes. We'll be talking about some improv techniques called yes and then the idea of we want to edit after we create versus really creating and then editing as we go. So this is little less about laughter and giggling and smiling and all of that, and now sort of shifting our focus into talking more about humor and play. So improving your sense of humor, there's so many things that you can sort of tap into this particular skill set. So some actions that can do that for you include, maybe keeping cartoons. For me, it's memes or GIFs. I have a couple go-to, or, I might, and this would of course depend on your work setting and your coworkers and your boss, but maybe I could find a quick little meme or a GIF or a cartoon to send as an email response versus it just like, yep, got it. I used to, when I was back on a university campus, we had a behavioral concerns team. So it was basically, I'm worried about this person, and then I would need to basically email my staff members and say, all right, please go follow up with this person. I'm concerned about them. And they were always really sort of on edge on Friday mornings. That's when we met. So anytime they didn't have anybody on their docket, on their follow-up list, I would find a funny meme or a funny gift of like, whoo, relief or like freedom or no worries, as just a way to bring a little bit of a smile, to my face, because I had a fun time finding those, but also to the receiver. And again, you kind of need to know your workplace, but if there are ways to incorporate that, that could be really beneficial to you. And then also you're contributing to those group dynamics. Laughing at yourself, even if it's fake laughter, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. I'm such a klutz. Or, of course I spilled on my top again. That is like who I am as a person. And not taking yourself super seriously can help your sense of humor. Spending time with people, and again, COVID is hard, but encouraging and thinking through who you have as kind of part of your circle, is really everybody super serious? Is everybody kind of negative or sarcastic all the time? Or do you have people in your life that really make you laugh? And there's time and place for everything. You don't have to be laughing all the time with people, but do you have that as part of kind of like your balance of your social work? And then enjoying, jokes or humor online in books and magazines. If you right now were to maybe like go on YouTube or go on Netflix or something and put on something that 100% would make you laugh, what would it be? go ahead and throw that in the chat. We may find some additional things. So if you were to find something online that you know that you would laugh at, what would it be? All right, I've got to vote for blooper videos or outtakes. One thing that will make me laugh more than anything is watching like small town newscasters, like something funny happen. I'm laughing thinking about it. Try to keep a straight face of something. Saturday Night Live sketches where they break character and they're laughing. That just like puts me over the edge. There's a lot of really great videos of like The Office or Parks and Rec or other shows where they have broken character because they're laughing, and that will also do it. So, you know, for you, maybe it's TikTok, maybe it's memes, maybe it's YouTube, but really thinking about, you know, what is something that could immediately give me that, you know, that hit of serotonin, that quick little laugh, because we know we understand all those health benefits. So if there's ways or things that you for sure know that could help, somebody else mentioned cute animals. 100%. That'll do it every time. Put a smile on my face. Please think about ways that you could, you know, really incorporate that into your daily life. A quick note on this, you know, avoiding laughing at, you know, the expense of others or humor that is inappropriate, especially making sure that you understand if this is happening in a workplace setting. You know, maybe a video I share with my best friend is not something I would share with my colleague or my coworker, because you may not know each other necessarily on that level. So using humor appropriately is also, you know, quite important. So additionally, thinking through creating really simple jokes. And this is not, you know, this is not a stand-up workshop by any means, but there are ways that you can maybe become a little more clever or a little more funny with some of your jokes. And there are sort of three main categories when it comes to creating jokes. So the first one is recognition. So playing with events from your life or exaggerating real life events. This is sort of the Seinfeld route, if you remember that, you know, show about nothing, and was, you know, really funny for years and years and years because he was just playing on real life events. You know, the kooky neighbor, the anxious best friend, you know, the wild Elaine with, you know, the crazy boss, stuff like that. The other type of joke is surprise. So, you know, changing or really reversing familiar things, or adding in, you know, a series of things, and that third thing really, you know, does not belong for whatever reason. Also realizing that, you know, you don't want to do things that make things or make people uncomfortable. So if you're not super sure, you know, really taking a minute to be sure before you kind of engage in, you know, different types of joke telling. So this is a super simple exercise where we can create a really simple joke. So you probably remember this line from Forrest Gump. You know, life is like a box of chocolates because you never know what you're gonna get. You know, this is already funny. It has two of those elements, which is recognition as well as surprise. So we recognize that a box of chocolates is unpredictable, and we're often surprised by the truth of that metaphor. So let's try this out. So life is like a box of chocolates because, so go ahead and take, you know, a moment or two. Maybe this is scratch paper. You know, if you are brave and want to put it into the chat, please feel free to do so. And like it says down there at the bottom, you know, even if you don't like your joke, maybe you don't necessarily think it's all that funny, maybe it doesn't make sense, just write it down. The idea is that you are really resisting the urge to edit it, to reject it, or to critique it. So look at the joke that you've written, say yes, and maybe write another one. So I want to give you just a minute, and if anybody is super, super brave and wants to put into the chat what their life is like a box of chocolates, because it's always messy. Or, oh, I'm putting myself on the spot right now. I guess the always messy is what I'm going to go with. So if anybody wants to put theirs in the chat, now is your chance. So life is like a box of chocolates because wow, is it a mess. Okay. All right. A little bit of shy. Don't worry. Not to worry. So the next piece to kind of go through is this really great concept that comes from the improv world. So improv comedy. Oh, and it looks like, oh, sorry about that. My mouse stopped working. That was bizarre. All right, no worries. So yes and is a really key improv theater technique. So we're saying yes and to ourselves as we are building those jokes. And when improv performers are collaborating on stage, they never reject somebody else's idea. That is the death of a skit. They say yes and to accept what that person said, you know, that world that person created, and then to contribute on top of it. It's really a way to create through play. So here is an example. You know, guy number one says, "What a hot and miserable day to be a ranch hand." And then if that other person who's responding is using the concepts of yes and, you know, Everett is saying, "Yep, and the boss said we don't get any water until this fence is mended." Yes, and ain't he the meanest cuss that we've ever worked for? Yep, and it made me think about leaving behind this cowboy life and heading for San Francisco. So without Everett, the second person to speak, saying yes and, if he just said, "No, it's not, and we're not ranch hands, we work at a college, what are you talking about?" That is where that joke, that play, that form of connection would totally end. So thinking about the power of yes and, it is positive. It really works towards making things happen. It can also be a relationship builder, because what better way to provide feedback in the moment to a person than to say, "Yeah, that's a great idea, and you know, maybe here's how we could add on to it. Here's something else that we could do. Here's something else that we could consider." So some ways that you really want to think about this is avoid changing the subject. So if you are thinking about, you know, maybe like a committee meeting or a task force or something along those lines, if you're really truly tapping into yes and, you are not going to change the subject. Instead, you're going to really offer words of encouragement and also maybe ask some leading questions. So maybe you don't necessarily understand completely where they're going. Instead of saying, "I don't get it. What the heck are you talking about?" That stops that conversation often, not always. But it can really make that person feel more on the defensive versus saying, "Oh yeah, I really love that idea and it made me think of this. Could you give me a little more details about that? Or have you considered this?" So you're not shutting down their idea, you're adding on top of it. You know, responding to generic questions with fun answers can be helpful, and it also really helps bring things full circle. I'd like you to think about your last group meeting, whatever that meeting was. Maybe it was a staff meeting or a committee or a project or something, and think about how different it could have been if people didn't shut down ideas. Or, you know, for me, I'm a very I really like to solve problems. So often that can feel like for other people that I'm like poking holes in their ideas, when that's not true. I'm just sort of trying to, you know, game out what are potential pitfalls so we, you know, we don't fall into them. But how different could that experience be if instead of shutting down that idea or asking 1,000 questions. I instead came to it with a yes and philosophy. There are actually all kinds of consultants who used to be comedians and improv theater performers who do consultations with companies and organizations and colleges and do whole day workshops on just this idea of yes anding as a way to really connect and to build and to be more collaborative in nature. Now, understandingly, it's not going to be the best choice for every situation, right? For me, when I was working with college students, that often meant I was on call and, at 4 o'clock in the morning when there is a crisis or an emergency, that is not appropriate time for me to, tap into my improv skills. That is, people wanted to be very direct, be given very specific instructions. So there's a time and place for everything, but especially if you are in a creative space, a brainstorming space, a goal, or maybe a strategic plan, this could be a really powerful tool that could really help with some of those group dynamics. So another really great way to help you kind of in the workplace is this idea of not trying to edit as you go, but edit after you give yourself some time and some space to really create. If you're stuck trying to write an email, it just helps to write down ideas, even if it's bullet points. After you get that done, then you can go back and improve the tone or the clarity or make it feel more complete. You also, a lot of people are much better at editing than creating. So get the hard part out of the way first, and then edit with that goal in sight. So these are some additional tips about this, really focusing on quantity. So this means, enhancing the production, aiming to aid in problem solving after the concept that quantity breeds quality. So the assumption is that the greater number of ideas that are generated, the greater the chance is going to be of producing a really great solution. And try to this is hard, especially if we're critical to ourselves, but try to avoid withholding, or you want to withhold editing and criticism, because those are two different processes. They're both really important, but when we are trying to, so sorry about that, but when we are trying to create, it should really be focused on not fearing that writer's block. So editing ideas should sort of be put on hold during creation, instead reserve it for later in the process. Because when we reserve judgment, we often are generating some cool or maybe unusual ideas. So that's the next piece. Welcome those. We can often, when we get started on maybe a tough project or, things along those lines, where we get really good at like a list, and those unusual ideas should really be welcomed. This can really help generate a new perspective, new ways of thinking or being, because by creating and then editing, we can be more productive, we can be more creative. And if doing this in a group project, you can also be, an easier colleague to kind of get along with in the moment. So to wrap up, again, understanding those benefits and really takeaways of smiling in the moment. Again, I know I work with college students. They can be endlessly frustrating, but they can also be really entertaining. So thinking about how you can incorporate smiling into your different interactions with people, and also how you can use laughter to reduce stress in the moment are very beneficial. And thinking through how you can incorporate, humor and play, whether that is yes anding or waiting to edit after you're done creating something, that can also be really, really beneficial. So that is the conclusion of the webinar, I do want to do just a couple minute segment on our employee assistance program, because a lot of people may know maybe a little bit, or, yeah, I heard about that in orientation, but I've kind of never thought about it again. Understandable, life is wild right now. So we have a variety of options available. First is by calling the 800 number, and that is specific for your institution. That is staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by licensed counselors and therapists and social workers. So if you or somebody else in your workplace is really having something tough, a good laugh is not going to sort of get you through that moment. Definitely give us a call. I encourage folks to put that phone number like in your phone right now, or maybe take a screenshot of this, or oh my gosh, I have so many pictures of screenshots on my phone. So feel free to jot that down. We also have an online resource called guidanceresources.com, and that has all kinds of resources, thousands of free resources for you. Everything from personality assessments to, mental health help to, like one pagers on really specific topics, podcast recommendations, lot of really great stuff on there. When you set up your account for the very first time, you will be asked for a web ID, and that is hopefully pretty easy to remember. That's CNMCC. Once you set up your account, you'll have your own like login and everything. That's just for the first go round. So you can access that whenever you want as well. And then also it's important to know that this is totally free of charge. That is a benefit that your college has tacked on to your benefits package. So, take advantage of it. And it is also completely confidential. So I know a lot of times people are, understandably concerned that, their boss is going to find out, or HR is going to find out they're talking to a counselor. And that is not the case. We provide really high level data, more like, 75 people gave us a call this month, something like that. But your specific information will not be shared at all. And then we also have additional experts on hand. So a lot of times, and this is fine, but people connect their employee assistance program with therapy or counseling, which is absolutely true. We have that available 24/7. But we also have a lot of additional experts. Like we have attorneys on staff if you're having a legal problem. We have certified financial counselors. So maybe you are working through debt or student loans, or you want to save for a wedding, or your college or your students' college education. We have folks that can offer all kinds of options in those areas. And then also things like, in the fall, we're going back to fully being in person. I can't find childcare to save my life. Give us a call. We could help kind of do the research for you. Or a lot of times people will say, my parents are getting older. I need to figure out, power of attorney and their will and nursing homes, or, skilled nurses coming into their homes. And that's so overwhelming. Give us a call and we'll create a folder of kind of like options for you. I kind of think about it as like a life concierge. So it could be something really serious, like, getting your folks into a nursing home, or like we had a client a couple of weeks ago who was helping her daughter plan her wedding and did not have the time to do the research on the florist. So we put together a variety of options in her area with quotes, and that was sort of done for her. So if you are facing a problem, especially if you feel like you don't have the time, or honestly these days the energy to do that research or consider your options on your own, give us a call and we're really, really happy to help you out. So that's the end of my portion. I'm happy to stay on the line a little bit longer if anybody has any questions. You could put that in the chat. You could come off of mute since we're on a Zoom. But otherwise, thank you so much for your time and attention today. Hopefully it brought a smile to your face at least a couple of times. And hopefully it gave you some tools or some tricks to kind of take with you as you move forward, maybe through the end of your academic year if you're not done yet, but definitely through the summer. So if you have any questions, not an expert, but really willing to chat through things. But otherwise, I really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much, everybody.